What's up with it, guys? Okay, this is going to be another, hopefully pretty quick video here. I'm going to go through my macros and then do kind of a kiting component as far as it relates specifically to marksman hunters. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be strictly PvP oriented as far as examples and things I'm talking about, but I do keep all the same macros and keybinds and everything for PvE, so it shouldn't affect anything like that. Most of this has to do with adjustments or macros related to your crowd control type stuff that I think are exponentially better than just having them set up standard. So I'm going to kind of go through that, and then the kiting portion is going to be based on kind of the mobility and kiting and cooldowns that you have as marksman specifically, that I feel like I've gotten a much better handle on over playing this spec a ton the last couple weeks. I was very foreign to it initially, and I feel a lot more comfortable just with the toolkit and kind of how all that works. So with that being said, it's going to be very PvP oriented. And then on another note, I'm going to basically break this down into two categories as far as macros, or I guess like the way you're going to be utilizing macros and abilities, and one being arenas, and then one basically being world PvP battlegrounds and rated battlegrounds, kind of in its own category, because obviously they're not 100% going to be in those two scenarios, but I think one is more of like a small team fight based situation, and one is going to be either big team fight or solo play, which are both going to kind of be the same thing as far as your role or your priorities or your cooldowns and things like that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So on my macros here, now there's a couple main ones that I think are really important. I have a couple mouse over macros, and then I have a bunch of at cursor macros. Now I'll post these in the description below if you guys want to copy paste, that way you don't have to worry about typing all this out. But the at cursor macros are really helpful, and I'm going to go through those first. But for example, if you see like I have my flare, right? I can't show you without manually clicking on the spellbook because I have it bound, but it gives you this reticle that you can then again click and cast the flare, right? So it does that. Great. The thing is in PvP, especially if you're in the middle of a disengage, or if you're in the middle of like I'm high mountain, I'm in the middle of a charge, things like that, that extra click being spot on while you have any kind of mobility going on and your camera angle is switching during that cast makes it really hard. It makes it hard to like have your cursor click to cast it and then also click to like the location. So for that reason, I used to be playing a shaman a lot, and so I was doing it for my totems. And then there's a lot of synonymous abilities as far as that goes regarding hunter traps. So for that reason, I have kind of set it up like that. So my high explosive trap, for example, I have keybound just as normal. You can see down here. But all my other traps, and main reason being is because that one's kind of finicky with exactly how you place it. But all my other traps, my flares, you can see if I cast flare, I'm going to put my cursor, we're going to flare the crap out of this spider, right? It just goes right where my cursor's at. I don't have to double click anything. It's just right where my mouse is. Now, again, this is going to take a couple days of getting used to, really. If you have to keep the keybinds and get familiar with it, because it requires you to have your cursor there ahead of time, which if you're using the default keybinds and setup, is going to be a little bit foreign. But trust me, it is much quicker. The ability I have to react to like a rogue vanishing, for example, and hitting them with flare is exponentially higher with something like this than trying to click my ability and then like move my mouse and then click the location that he's at, right? So I just give it like a day or two of trying these out and getting used to them, and I promise it is going to be a much faster paced gameplay when it comes to your crowd controls. Now, I have this set up also for my freezing trap. So you can see I had no reticle there, and it just throws my freezing trap where my mouse is at. This is really crucial for having quick CCs. I honestly don't feel like there's ever scenarios where if I had the actual reticle show, that it would be the difference of me landing the trap or not. I haven't, since I've like created this macro like this, I haven't ever felt like, oh, I wish I didn't have it macroed like that. So maybe you're going to be different, but I think that one is also a really important one to be able to get off very quickly, because most of the time you're going to be trying to follow up on CCs and things of that nature. And I just think it's just much better. I also have it set up for my tar trap as well. Same kind of thing. I think that's all I have on those at cursor macros. Another thing that's a really important macro to have is a cancel aspect of the turtle. It's just /cancelaura aspect of the turtle. Like I showed in my weak auras video, you can see if I cast it here, I have a separate keybind, I cast it and it goes away, it's now on cooldown. This is actually really important because there is a pretty significant amount of times that you want to be using I wouldn't say the majority, but I would say there's a notable amount of times you want to be using it as an ability deflection type tool. For example, say you're against a Destruction Warlock in a World PvP situation. You don't want to necessarily sit there in the turtle for 7 or 8 seconds or however long the duration is. You want to avoid the damage of an incoming Chaos Bolt, cancel it, and then keep unloading on him. You don't want to give him that time to get his cooldowns back up, to like get ready to cast Fear on you. You don't want to give them that extra time, right? You want to keep the pressure up, but you want to use it to negate damage in a short window. So for that reason, it's really important. Another thing is a lot of times in arena settings, I'll cast Turtle, and that will cause all the pressure to fall off of me. So, you know, like there's a warrior on me and a rogue. I cast Turtle, they turn and like run, focus my partner or whatever. And you don't necessarily need to just sit there in Turtle. Sometimes you do, but you don't always. So for that reason, it's helpful to be able to cancel it and keep that DPS going, keep that pressure up. So I think that's also a very, very important one. Now the last, we got two more. Let me say, there might be more than two more, but two more on this page. One of them here I have is a mouse over concussive shot macro. So you can see here I have this target dummy right here in front of me. If I hover over this target and I hit my macro, it will concussive shot this target and not change my macro at all. So for example, I can aim shot, I can concussive shot this guy, and then I can keep going on this guy right here, right? Super helpful, mainly because you can keep DPS on a target, and you can basically every 5 or 6 seconds be concussive shotting a rogue, a warrior, someone that's on your healer or whatever, and it's very helpful. I'm actually not very good at using this one all the time, if I'm being honest, but I do think it's a very good macro, and I think once I get a little bit better that it will be something that I'm going to be utilizing a lot more often. But that's a really helpful one. I will post that down below so that you don't have to try and read all this gibberish of how you have to type it up. The other thing is I have like just a generic cooldown one that's like Aspect of the Wild. It's basically for all my specs. That just accounts for everything, trinkets, things like that. I'm going to be posting a one-shot montage basically of battle rounds. But for example, in this one I have the Saltwater Potion, which is the 30% damage bonus potion in Battlegrounds, macroed into this. I'll have on-use trinkets, like the Gladiator's Medallion. This is basically like my one-shot macro, if you will. So lots of different things you can kind of throw in there. Now, if I go back to the general, I do have, most of the time I run without a pet, most of the time. But I do have a macro here that is basically, if I have a pet out, it basically macros my pet attack, and I do it with a cast that I do not need to cast while moving. So for like this spec specifically, I have it as aim shot. BM, I have it macroed with kill command. Survival, I think I have it macroed with Raptor Strike or Kill Command, one of the two. But you want to do it on something that is either relevant to your pet's attacking the target or something that's not going to trigger unless like you are also DPSing that target for sure. Like for example, if I did it on Steady Shot, like I might be trying to run and I might be trying to do a concussive shot, but if I start casting my Steady Shot macro, it's going to start casting Steady Shot and I can't cast the concussive shot, right? So you want to go ahead and macro it to something. Let me see if hopefully if I don't get a proc there. But you can see, right, I can send him, I'm bringing him back. Why is he not going? Oh, maybe it's not working right now. Anyway, this is the intent of the macro. I'm not sure why it's not working right now. I'll have to see. But the other thing is I have a pet attack and pet assist in this because you'll see down here at the bottom if I change this keybind. Why does he like start running? That's so weird. I don't know. I'll have to mess with that one and see. But if I do my call back on my pet, it will switch him to passive. And you don't want to leave it where your pet's always on passive because a lot of times he'll just sit there and stand next to you. So for that reason, I have it, whatever I have as my attack setup also causes him to then do pet assist. And then if I need to recall him, it goes back. So it's pretty straightforward. Nothing is special on this passive one. I just have the keybind on the passive. What else do we have? I have a focus. Oh, this is if a focus exists. So this is actually another really important one. I do suggest using this on any CC that you have that is a castable, targetable CC. So it doesn't work on something like Frost Trap, right? it doesn't work. But what this macro ends up doing is, say for example, if I set this guy as my focus and I'm on this guy, what I can do is I can basically do my macro. Even though I have this guy targeted, it's going to cast my scatter shot at this target because that target is my focus. If I have no focus, if I clear this focus, and it'll take me 20 seconds to show you, but it will cast the shot at my existing target. So a couple things that can backfire on you if, for example, you're against like a druid or a rogue and they vanish or shadow meld, or sorry, night elf, and they shadow meld and clear your focus. You'll have to reapply that. It's pretty easy in arenas to do that, but you can just right click on the Gladius. But that is very, very helpful macro. The other thing is I have this set up. It says blind because this was from my rogue, but it's actually a counter shot macro. So let me show you here again back on the scatter shot. I don't have a focus set up. I hit it. It scatters my target right there. Okay, now this same thing, if we go back and I set this guy as my focus, I'm on this guy. I have a macro that does my counter shot. It doesn't have a debuff, you can't see it, but you saw that shot go off on that target, which is this one that I have that says blind. Is basically a focus. It's the same thing. It's a focus interrupt macro. I cannot tell you how many times the focus interrupt macro has 1s, 2s, and 3s for me, especially at lower rating. So you can imagine if you're in a PvP situation, I'm unloading on this. Let's dismiss the pet. I don't like the pet being out. If you're in PvP, I'm sitting here, I'm unloading on this guy. Okay, get a CC on the healer. I scatter him. You can see the scatter debuff going. I'm going to throw my frost trap. I'm keeping DPS up. Say the trap's about to run out. I can go ahead and I kick his next heal. That's a huge amount of pressure that I just provided while being able to keep DPS up on my single target. So I definitely suggest having those two abilities, either a separate keybind so that it's only a focus keybind or whatever, but being able to stick and keep pressure on a target, scatter the target, trap the target, and then focus interrupt that target is very valuable. You should have this no matter what class you're playing, in my opinion, on any of your point click CCs and any of your interrupts that have range, even if they're not range, maybe even like a warrior focus charge and a kick, things like that. Very, 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 very helpful. Last little one that I would point out is I have a mouse over misdirect macro, so you can just mouse over someone's party frame. I also have a mouse over Roar of Sacrifice. I don't have Roar of Sacrifice selected right now, so you can't see it, but I can post that below as well. Basically, it allows me, if I have my party frames here, say this guy's an ally, I can either mouse over him, or if he's in my party, I can mouse over his raid frame right here, and click the keybind, and it will do Roar of Sacrifice on that target. It's more relevant, in my opinion, for BM hunters. What's the other thing is I have another one that basically does survival of the fittest or master's call with the same keybind, because that will change based on what pet you have, and that way you don't have to have two keybinds. And that's pretty much it as far as macros go. So with that being said, let's get into real quickly here the peel and various options we have. Now, like I had said, Concussive Shot with this mouse over macro is a great tool for peeling. In RBGs and Battlegrounds and World PvP, it's really important to use both your scatter shot, and your trap to allow you to get a free aim shot off on the target. We do not have the stun the same way that BM and Survival have, so it's really important. So say like this guy's on me, right? I'm going to slow him and I disengage. Now that's enough distance. I can get one aim shot off, so I'm going to go aim shot, arcane shot. Then he's still on me. Oh shoot, I have this focus set up. Assume I scattered him, right, though. I can scatter him, still cast another aim shot, then arcane shot. He comes a little closer, I throw a trap, he runs over the trap. I can sit here, get another aim shot, arcane shot, same thing. So basically between your disengage, your scatter, and your trap, you can basically get 3 free aim shots off if you play it right in a one-on-one situation. Now the other thing you have is bursting shot. Now bursting shot is very, very finicky. And you can see I'm not going to be able to show you the mobility component of it, but basically the target has to be about this close to you. Like you can't be really much further than this, and they have to be right in your frontal cone vicinity. This is a very narrow cone. So like literally if I'm faced like this, it will not knock that target back. The other thing that's important to note is there's an elevation requirement. Like if we're in this situation, and say this terrain back here behind him is at all slightly elevated, it's going to knock him from here to right here. It's going to be super minimal, and it's not really going to do anything. It is important to note that there is a slow component to bursting shot. So for that reason, you can basically use that and make sure you're not wasting another global on also keeping concussive shot up. So you can bursting shot, get a few offensive globals or defensive globals, then concussive shot. So it is important to note that they do have that slow on them for a short period of time. But bursting shot is the most difficult as far as abilities to rely on in regards to your crowd control peel type component. Now, one thing also I wanted to point out is on the 75 row, I do run post haste 100% of the time. Now, post haste is amazing because your disengage is such a short cooldown, but you want to be using this, right? If I'm attacking this guy, if I have distance, I don't want to necessarily disengage to then just create more distance. If it's a class like a rogue that can shadow step to me, some class that has a gap closer, which basically everyone, you want to make sure that you're waiting until you get a slow on you, then disengaging. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Allowing post haste to proc to then cleanse that slow. Then that way you basically have a 15-second window that you're trying to survive or whatever and keep that distance going. Now, what you can do is if you basically, for example, I see a guy, I'm out here, I'm opening on him, arcane shots. Okay, let me get a few steady shots. I have concussive shot up. I'm going to concussive shot again. We're going to keep the steady shots going. Okay, he's on me. I'll scatter trap. Then I'll set up my aim shot because I got my 5 stacks. Then I hit my burst. Then he keeps coming at me again. I'll just keep running. I'll throw the trap. He runs on the trap. I'll do the same thing. And then now this time when he's closed, oh, he's got his slow on me. Okay, I cast that. I'm going to disengage, get away, do the same thing. And then basically between those three, you can kind of just keep rotating, disengage, your scatter, and your trap. Those will always be up. You do want to make sure you scatter first and trap second, because scatter is a shorter duration, and the second cast is going to have a 50% diminishing return on the ability. So if I trap first, it's going to be a 7-second trap. If I break that, then my scatter is only going to be 2 seconds. If I scatter first, scatter is going to be a 4-second scatter, and then if I trap, it is going to be a 3.5-second trap, or 4-second trap, whatever it is, rather than flipping it the other way around where your second CC is basically useless because it's too short. So make sure you scatter first, trap second. By the time both of those are back up off cooldown, that diminishing return will be gone. It is important to note that scatter and trap both are considered incapacitates. So polymorph will share DR with it. Monk's paralysis will share DR with it. I think repentance is also an incapacitate, will share DR with it. Fears do not DR. Stuns do not DR. What is it? The disorient, the pally, like light explosion thing, that does not DR. What else? That's pretty much it. So that's why it's really, really good if you're running with warriors, because their Stormbolt doesn't DR, their Fear does not DR, so you can set up some really good chains. Cyclone does not DR with our kit as well. So I think that's pretty much it. So hopefully, I know this was kind of a little scattered and all over the place, but just kind of want to talk about the different abilities and things that I have. Again, I am going to be posting more content in both arenas and battlegrounds, especially this one-shot. This one-shot video has got me so excited, man. I was cracking up filming this because you literally can just insta-kill people in these BGs with popping on my cooldown. So keep an eye out for that, because I think it is going to be legitimately entertaining for anyone that plays Marksman. But that being said, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Post those down below, and I will get back to you, I promise, as soon as possible. Until next time, I will catch you guys later. Bye.